Hi, I'm Alan R, and this is Motor Matters, your favorite channel for everything motoring in South Africa. Now, before we talk the car we're looking at today, let's talk changecars.co.za. That is the website where you can find your next car with total peace of mind, because they only list cars from franchise dealers. And once you've found that car, click on the button that says Discover Insure, and you can organize your insurance as well. That's changecars.co.za.
The new generation Renault Captur launched very, very recently in South Africa, and we've already got it on test. Now, there's a lot of similarities from the previous generation, which you will find a review on this channel a while back. But in the meantime, let's take a look at a couple of the features and take note of the fact that there are two models in the range, Zen Spec and Intense. This is the top Intense spec, so you get a lot of extra features. But what you have to notice is, of course, the very, very prominent Renault face over here with a big badge. You've got the skid plate effect at the bottom, because this Renault would like to tell you it's a crossover SUV. I'm going to call it a hatchback, because quite honestly, to me, it's got a lot more clues of a general hatchback more than a crossover SUV. What it does have is nice boomerang shaped daytime running lights and LED headlights. Good for your safety, of course, and that's what you always want to know. The cues to crossover SUV, of course, is the black cladding over the wheel arches, all the way down at the bottom of the doors, as you would expect. And you've got really nice bi-color alloy wheels, 17-inch on both models. I'm going to concentrate quite a bit on the differences in spec between Zen and Intense, because I think that is pretty important. Something else you get on Intense only is, I've got to tell you, this old-fashioned, outdated Renault key card, as they call it, which operates the car. But what it does give you is, of course, keyless entry and exit with push-button start on Intense model. Let's take a look at the space in the back seat quickly, because that is pretty important to everybody. And if you want it for family use, that is something you want to know. Driver's seat, of course, set for myself. Lots of legroom, I've got no complaint about that. And the headroom's decent with my hat on. Not massive, but I'll call it decent. Another feature, of course, on this model is the fact you can move the back seat forward and backward, obviously limiting the legroom, but increasing boot space if you want that as a priority. Nice feature is the fact you've got the vents in the back seat, you've got two USBs and a 12 volt for the back seat. Those are good features, and that's nice to see when you're looking at family usage. Come around, of course. Note also, it's not a panoramic roof, but you've got, of course, the black roof. It's the bi-color or bi-tone treatment that's becoming so popular these days. Pop open the boot, which has not got remote of any sort. And Renault have gone to the slightly old-fashioned concept of the board over here, which, of course, if you remove, look how much deeper the boot is. Not bad at all. And underneath there, you have got a space saver spare wheel, but at least you've got a spare wheel, so I'll be very happy with that and not complain. When this board is out and you've got the full boot, you're looking at about 400 liters of boot space, which is pretty good, and I don't think anybody would complain about that. If you want to push those rear seats forward all the way, you're going to go over 500 liters of boot space. Very competitive in this category. Again, you've got the skid plate effect at the rear that they're so keen to have when they want it to be a crossover SUV. Both models are powered by a 1.3 litre four-cylinder turbo petrol engine that delivers 113 kilowatts and 217 newton meters of torque through either a 6-speed manual or as we have right here, 7-speed dual clutch automatic transmission, what Renault termed the EDC. Let's check it out on the road and let's look at the features inside.
Well, what else can we do except come on our favorite little cruise through to Hearties? This Captur, the new 1.3 litre turbo engine, 103 kilowatts, it's got enough power. In fact, it's got more than enough power. It feels very, very peppy. And this is up quite a steep hill, and I'm cruising up here with no effort whatsoever and just literally accelerating up the hill, which is really nice. The other thing, of course, is that you've got the typically French comfort. So the seats are soft, the ride feels pretty smooth, pretty relaxed. And I'm thinking of this car more as a hatchback than even a crossover SUV. So it's got the hatchback handling, I would say. It's got slightly nicer handling than a lot of the crossover SUVs of the current ilk, shall we call it. And it also makes a nice, pleasant difference. But just overall, I must tell you, it's a pleasant place to be. Well equipped. You've got this nice big screen over here in the center. And the point being, it's a nice, comfortable, smooth ride with enough in reserve for an overtake when you want and when you need. And that really is something I always look for in every vehicle, because I want to know that when I'm going to overtake, I can do it safely when I'm out in the country, like I am right now.
Behind the wheel, of course, as we always start, let's look at the instrumentation. Now you've of course got digital TFT instrumentation in front of the driver. You can scroll, you can change, you know all these things. But what I really want you to see is the fact we've done 506 kilometers so far on this test. But look at this. Going the wrong way, but there you go. And 6.8 liters per 100. Overall, I think that's a pretty good show. And you've got a 48 litre fuel tank, and look at that down over there, telling you there's still 110 kilometers left in the tank. So you've got a good range of upwards of 600 kilometers in a tank full in this car. And I think you could do a bit better than that even. You come over here and let's look at a few little features. I can't call them flappy paddles, but you've got paddles. So you have got paddle shiftlers, little ones behind the steering wheel, if you want to use those on that EDC automatic transmission, as I said, the 7-speed. Now down here, I want to show you quickly. Intense spec includes blind spot warning in the mirrors. You'll see the lights come on if a car comes, and even lane departure warning, which you can switch on and off using that button over there. And then over here, you'll see there are buttons, for example, for features like heated steering wheel even. And you do get, of course, cruise control. And something else on this car, I'm just turning the wheel here. I've complained many times about that funny stubby extra stalk that Renault use for the radio and the sound system. Well, it's not quite as stubby, and instead of pull on those little buttons now, you press on them. So it's a little bit updated and a little bit improved, and I will appreciate that. So thanks for that, Renault. Really, I do mean that quite clearly. Now, again, let's look at the center screen over here. Intense spec over Zen spec gives you a 9.3-inch screen as opposed to a 7-inch screen, and it gives you standard navigation. Those are features that I really do like, and I'll always like promote those and speak about those. You've got your climate control over here, works very effectively. I've used it a lot. And down below, you've got another 2 USBs, an auxiliary, and another 12 volt at the front. And you do have wireless charging over here on Intense, but it does not have wireless Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. Well, I'll live without that. You've got, here's the gear lever. It's a funny stubby little e-gear, I think Renault call it, but it does fall nicely to hand. It works quite nicely. Although the one thing I must tell you I did find strange, there's no button or anything of that sort to prevent you going into reverse by accident. Most cars would have that. and I was looking for it and could not find it. So I don't know, maybe I'm being a little bit too picky, but it is something. And you've got the electronic parking brake there. Now, the gearbox, let's talk about that. The 7-speed EDC, as Renault call it, dual clutch. It works well, it's smooth, it's very good in cruising, in driving on the highways, but I have to tell you, in traffic conditions, I have found it a touch jerky. Just a little bit, but I don't know. You can live with it, you can't live with it. Those are the kind of things only you can decide for yourself. In overall use, it's pretty good. I mentioned earlier that I feel this car's more a hatchback than a crossover SUV. I say that because it's not as high as some of the others. It's not quite as spacious, although there is lots of room. I was quite surprised at how much room there is in the back seat, for example. And it certainly drives more like a hatchback than a crossover SUV. We took it out to Harties on our favorite twisty little road, and it hugged the road nicely. It performed and handled really well, and that's what made me think more of hatchback than crossover SUV. But it's up to you. You can look at it however you want and however you wish. Going back to safety, I mentioned, and this is where the difference between Zen and Intense to me is so important, is the extra safety spec. I mentioned lane departure warning, blind spot warning. Those are things that come into it, and you get 6 airbags on this version as well. Bigger screen. Well, the bigger screen to me would not be the end of the world, but I put all my value on safety, because in EDC automatic spec, let's leave out the manuals for now, you can choose between the two, and you come in on this one at can I call it 500,000 Rand, whereas there's a 50,000 Rand drop to the Zen spec. So for that 50,000 Rand, I've told you all the extra features you get: the keyless entry and keyless start, the blind spot warning, the lane departure warning, and extra airbags and navigation over there on a bigger screen. It's pretty good value to me for the extra money. But your bank manager will tell you whether you can stretch the upper model or not. The seats are extremely comfortable in typical French fashion. And I know that Renault have made quite a thing of the aerodynamic and ergonomic design of these headrests in particular on their latest models. I am a little bit surprised at 2 spec items that I think could be here that are not. The one is driver's seat is manually adjusted, not electric, and the fact that the upholstery is cloth and not leather. Many cars in this category and price range would offer you those 2 items. But you know what? Cloth is quite user-friendly and quite comfortable sometimes, holds you better if you are going to push on a little bit. And, well, electric seats, if you're the only driver, do you really need electric seat adjustment? Up to you. I can also tell you, Leadfoot got his hands on this car for a little bit. It certainly does perform very well from that 113 kilowatts and 217 Newton meters of torque. The hatchback is dying out. Crossover SUV has taken over. This one reminds me, I keep repeating myself, of a hatchback, and I must say I liked it. Up to you to go and test one and see for yourself. For Motor Matters, I'm Eleanor. See you next time.